up heartless. Shit that I've been through really scarred me, it just taught me to use my heartless. Rose up from the darkness, got a second chance, I'm going hard, yeah. Paint pictures, something just like an artist. I ain't tripping if I don't see tomorrow, yeah. I grew up heartless. Shit that I've been through really scarred me, it just taught me to use my heartless. Rose up from the darkness, got a second chance, I'm going.
Hey, how are you?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Yes, thank you so much for having time to join me on Quarantine Time Talk today.
Appreciate you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So, one of the things I was talking about was that quarantine changed everyone. Is there anything you learned about yourself during quarantine so far that you don't think you would have learned otherwise?
I have the shortest attention span ever because I cannot sit down and watch a season of anything anymore. Like my attention span is gone. Like I sit here and try to watch something, then I'm on my phone and I'm just like, okay, this is not working. So yeah, I realize my attention span is not where it should be.
Wow, really? Is that because you're always
Yeah.
thinking about ideas and stuff?
I don't know. I think I'm just like anxious because I'm sitting there. I'm been sitting here so long. I'm anxious. I don't really think it's anything other than just that. Like I'm super anxious.
Ah, gotcha. So I was listening to your project. It's amazing. And before I even get into the specific songs on there, I would love to know, when did you find your passion for music? Because I can hear it all throughout the songs.
Um, I was always doing music. Like I was always like a hip hop head. Like since I think J. Cole's. I was like my brother and sister were always into music, so I would kind of dig in the crates and kind of see like the stuff they was listening to and be like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I think like it was like early stuff. Like I mean like all Kanye's albums, Lupe. I was into like that Chicago wave. I was definitely into when I found Illmatic, and then I was like, what is this? And then I found all Jay's projects, and I was like, whoa. And then I think when I heard Friday Night Lights going into high school, I was like, okay, this spoke to me so much. And then when I decided I wanted to rap was when I heard Joey Badass. He had a song, what was it, Hard Not Life. And I saw it on World Star. And I was like, and it was like 15-year-old rapper. I'm like, I'm 15. Man, I could do this shit. So from there, I was like, all right, boom. I have all this prior knowledge of just hip hop and, getting lost in a wormhole, seeing like old hip hop from the 80s to the 90s. I'm like, yeah, I have enough knowledge to know that this is what I want to do. So yeah.
Wow, that's dope.
Yeah.
The names you mentioned, I was not expecting. Like when you said Joey Badass, I was like, you know what? I see where you're coming from, though. Seriously.
Heavy Joey fan. Heavy Joey fan. Yeah, Friday Night Lights was definitely like our Bible in high school. I was different. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. To be honest, I go back and I listen to that album sometimes too because I'm just like,
Absolutely.
classic. No matter what he
Yeah.
puts out, that one will always stand high.
Yeah. Definitely.
I would love to know 3 words you would use to describe yourself.
Uh Vulnerable, introspective, and versatile.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
that. And I definitely felt the vulnerable, like the last song on your project. I was like, I have to get into that because that was so dope for you to talk about everything that I think a lot of people think, but they just don't
Yeah.
have the courage to say it.
Yeah, it's important for me, I think, on every project to kind of give people an update on what's really going on outside of the character that is what Banxsy Aliym essentially becomes. Because, people pull thoughts and ideas from songs and they kind of have their own perception of who you are. But I feel like it's always important to give at least one song. I guess I kind of got that from the Drake model, where I'm like, all right, you got to have that one song that ties it out where it's like, look, this is what's going on. This is me being as vulnerable as I could be. I did it in a song I got called The Family. That's on SoundCloud. Where I pretty much gave a recap of the journey and being disappointed and going through those moments where I've been sold dreams by people that were already in the game. And I've been through that already. So I kind of felt like I had to continue to trend and just tell people how I'm feeling and like how, I'm going through all this, but I still got to this point and you wouldn't even know it because I just let that stuff just be obstacles I got past.
Yes, and I respect that definitely because a lot of people go through that where they're told, I'm going to make you a star, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then,
Yeah.
a year later, it's the same thing.
Yep.
How did you come up with your artist name? I really like it because it's definitely original.
So people already know me by Banks. I had another name attached to it before, but they knew me by Banks. And some people in my team had suggested that I go with something a little more mature and something that was more marketable. So they said, hey, why don't we use your middle name, which is Abdul Alim? And I was like, that still is a little too personal for me because I don't never use those names. That's just like, so eventually, I think it was like an important meeting they had with somebody in the industry, and they saw that, they spoke to me about, look, this is how we want you to brand yourself, whatever, whatever. And I changed my name back to Banks. It was Banks GFT is like my standing name for the moment, and GFT standing for God, Family, and the Teams, which I stand on. And at that moment, I changed the name back to Banks, and they got really upset at me. And they're like, look, you got to let us know what you're doing because we're having meetings with important people. We couldn't find you. And I'm like, well, I'm not happy with this name. It's not sticking for me. It's not. So as I'm in the studio one night, shout out to Noski, I actually was working on Decisions. I had just finished recording it.
Oh wow.
And that was, I think, the last song I recorded. And this dude Noski comes in. It's super late. My session's done. And he's like, yo, we're talking. He's like, yo, bro, this song is dope. My engineer leaves the room and say, yo, I'm gonna let you hear it. So he's just like, yo, bro, I like this. Like, what do they call you? And I was like, I don't really know. I was like, I'm Abdul Alim, I'm Banks. I don't really know. I'm Alim, I don't know. He's like, why not like Alim Banks or Banks Alim? And I was like, man, somebody told me that before, but it didn't really make sense to me. But hearing it again, it's like, well, that's not just the first person now. So after yes, so Alim means all knowing, in Islam. So when I put the two together, is the artist all knowing. So I just thought, you know what? Now that has context, so it makes sense. It still has a part of me because I grew up practicing Islam,
Right.
and um, for me to call myself Banksy, I know there's an artist named Banksy, and I consider myself an artist with words. So I was like, you know what? This could work. This sticks, and I feel more comfortable with it. So I've been running with it ever since, and I think it's probably been like, I guess, a little less than a year. I think it's about a year now that I've been running with this name officially.
That's dope. I really like it, and I'm glad you came up with it because when I heard it and I seen it, I was like, this is unique. Like I
Mhm.
couldn't predict the type of music you were gonna make neither, which I thought was kind of
Right.
exciting.
Right. Now that was kind of the idea behind it too, because they said, hey, if we give you a name like Alim, people don't really know what to expect. They might expect a conscious rapper, they might expect whatever, you hear Wiz Khalifa and you don't know that Wiz Khalifa's gonna talk about weed. Like it has to be something that you hear and you're open to anything. So I guess it works out in the end. Shout out Young Amph, just stepped in, Devin the Pizza. Shout out to y'all.
Yes, yes. So I'm gonna get right into it. Live fast, die young. You had
Mhm.
said I done seen many dreams fade away. So from
Mhm.
your perspective, what is your ultimate dream? Like the one dream that you never want to see fade away for yourself?
Well, see, my goal more so is pretty much as an artist was always to leave behind a lasting impact, which is a classic album. Because in terms of sports, I feel like if you have a classic album, you have a championship ring. Like if you don't have a classic album, there's some artists that are really consistent their whole career and they don't have a classic album and they're remembered for their consistency, which is cool. But it's something about having a classic album which solidifies you in hip hop. So that's something I never want to ever stray away from, no matter what type of business gets involved, where it's like, okay, well, we need you to do this and do that. It's like still keep my creative vision in mind uh and still, maintain that goal of creating something classic. Or even if I don't create it, I would love to have my hand on a classic album, whether I be writing or producing or some other way I can contribute. I would definitely want to be a part of the makings of a classic album.
That's really dope. And I feel like, the fact that you mentioned writing and producing is cool. So you produce your own music as well?
No, but I'm pretty sure it's something I'll get into because I'm somebody that likes to be so hands on in things. Like, um, I know that as time goes on, like right now, one of my goals is trying to learn how to play instruments. I have a
Nice.
acoustic guitar that I've been like messing around with, and I've been telling myself like I want to get a little more familiar with the keyboard. So, I know that somewhere down the line I'll probably end up producing, and as I phase out of my career as an artist, I know that's going to be something I do is produce or do more songwriting or something like that. So,
I love the fact you said that because, listening to your project, the beats, the way you flow is really unique. Like, I'm not familiar with that type of style. And it's really
mhm.
dope to see a music artist touch into something else, especially when there's a time when music is sounding the same everywhere. So I'm pretty excited to see when you start producing, like what you're going to create, because I know it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I can't wait. It'll be dope. I have a lot of artists in mind that I would, shout out to Mel Duro. Like we're doing a project that we're gonna start working on soon, and I hope that it's gonna be tracks that, we both could have a lot of hands-on involvement in, whether it be, hey, I'm just gonna sit here and write my verse, and he's like, I'm gonna structure everything else around it, beat selection, whatever, that type of stuff. I think is fun. It's a fun obstacle, because you come up with new and creative ideas. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. So you guys are doing like a joint project together this music?
Yeah, we're not gonna announce too many details yet, but that's definitely been the plan. When we kind of get to slow down, we already have recorded some ideas, so it's just gonna be something that kind of grows into something over time. Whenever it's ready, it's ready. But just children of the field, 20, whenever we're not gonna give it a date, but it's
Fire.
definitely something that we want to put some time and effort into.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm looking forward to that. One thing that I noticed is that your lyrics depict pictures, which is pretty impressive. So Nowhere has lyrics that deeply talk about where you started, blood, sweat, and tears, difficult relationships, whether family, girlfriend, stuff like that. How would you describe your come up thus far, like dealing with regular life as well as dealing with, trying to chase your dream?
I think I guess you could call it my celebrity. I don't really refer to myself. When I refer to myself as a celebrity, usually I'm joking. But, a lot of times my friends tell me like, hey, you got to realize more people pay attention to you than you think. And it just makes me realize, even down to like people that mentor me, they kind of tell me like, hey, you can say certain things on social media, but just understand we're not going to censor you. But these are cases of people saying whatever they want and having to retract on those statements later on. And so I think just now realizing that people pay attention to me and what I say, and realizing I have a voice, to an extent, just to, even if it's a small audience, it comes with a responsibility. So, just learning that balance is kind of important, and just keeping that in mind.
Right, and I do, like I will say, I did notice that, and I do see that you're very conscious. Like even in your music, your lyrics, they're dope because you talk about certain things, but you don't go too in. Like you're not like too
I'm not talking about
explicit.
pyramids and stuff.
Yeah, like you're very, very conscious. I'm like, all right, let's see where you go, but then you
Yeah,
keep it at a certain level. Definitely
yeah.
dig that.
I try to keep it a little surface level because I know, like, I listen to music and I love it, but like sometimes people go so deep, it's like, whoa, bro, I didn't even get that far in my own studies to even connect to what you said. So, it's stuff. Music, it's all about being marketable. So at the end of the day, so people will be interested and they're like, oh, well, if that's what he's talking about, they're gonna always check back your music to see how much deeper you might get into it. And it'll be times where I do get deeper into it, but you just try to give them bits and pieces so they know, like, I can talk about this, I can talk about that. I know better, and I'm always trying to do better, but I'm still a person.
Right, absolutely. You also mentioned God and faith a lot, which is amazing. I love to hear that in music.
Hmm.
How would you say being religious and having a support system in general help you navigate through the music industry? Because there's a lot of ups and downs and things that happen.
Well, I come from, like, my family very spiritual, and I like we go by a motto. Me and a couple of my guys, it's always been God, family, and the team, and that's the support system. That's what you stand on. That's what's gonna carry you through life. You put your faith in one or all three or two or whatever, but that's what I always felt like was the most important things: was God, family, and the team. God being your faith, family being the people that you hold closest to you as your loved ones. It could be your closest friends, and your team is the people that make things happen, behind the scenes in terms of the whole idea of your career. So, but it's God, family, and the team for reasons, because God comes first for me personally. So, that's just really important because I know how this industry can be, and you got to always stay close to your faith. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I always like to ask artists, what music artists did they look up to, growing up? Like for you, I
mhm.
know you did mention Nas and, other artists already, but was it always hip hop, or do you listen to gospel as well, or, something of that?
It wasn't always hip hop, and not necessarily gospel, but I think even at a time, hip hop has just been like, it's just been there as long as I can remember. But I've looked up to other people, other individuals. Um, but I guess hip hop is just some place I always felt comfortable in. Because even when it came down to talk to girls, like I listened to Lloyd Banks and he would give game about females, and like dealing with them and how shicey they can be. And I always was just like, when I felt like I didn't have nobody to give me game, I turned to music and got whatever gems I could get from it. So um, yeah, that's pretty much how it's always been. But, I mean, my role models is I don't really even consider myself really having role models, but I do admire certain people and their work. I admire people for their art, and I separate it from the person, and I just keep it at that. So.
Yeah, I love that. That's great because I feel like when you are in any journey, trying to go anywhere, you do need that support. So I love the fact that you have a saying and already, you're there, like you're geared towards. So I
Yeah,
think moving forward, it'll always be smooth for you.
yeah, yeah. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no, of course. There's Heartless. Now you made a music video for that song. I want to first find out from you, why this single did you decide to make a music video for it?
Heartless I kind of put out before as a tester just to see what people would think, and it actually happened because my man's Ty, handsome Ty, shout out to him. He had hit me one day and was like, "Man, we ain't hear nothing from you in a minute," and I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, man." Like, I'm like, I don't feel like that, but okay. He's like, "Yeah, you need to drop something." So I'm like, "All right, I'll drop something." So I just kind of just went randomly and said, "Boop, Heartless. Let's see what happens." And I kind of just put it out. I remember put my phone down. I went back to playing 2K or something. Then my phone just started blowing up, and I'm like, "Oh, like people was feeling this." I didn't think they would really like, because I don't never really know how people are gonna receive my music.
Right.
Like, I just hope for the best. So when after that, I just was like, okay, this is something that we quietly put out, but we need to put a little more something behind this going down the line. So I decided to like, it wasn't even supposed to be on the project. Like, this was like in my head, I had a whole completely different idea for the project, and I had two singles, which is Heartless and Stars, and I was like, I could put this out afterwards. Those would just be like singles I hold on to and whatever. And I didn't really want to have any standout songs on this project. I just wanted it to kind of be cohesive as possible and kind of just hold a certain theme, and so people could judge it as a body of work. But I'm like, I have these two singles. I'm like, what about, what? People like it. I might as well just like kind of like, and I do also contribute that to sit down with my team, and he's like, let's just kind of focus everything around, Heartless and another single, and let's just see what happens. So
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool, especially because of the way the music video was done. So it's impressive to hear that you were like, oh, scroll, I'm going to pick this
yeah,
one. Because
yeah,
I thought there was like a whole thing behind it. Like that music video is so deep. I don't know if everybody in the chat has seen it already. But that was insane. It like started out so normal. You're just talking about
yeah,
your feelings, and then all of a sudden you're like gone. I'm like,
yeah.
whoa.
Yeah, we thought of that idea just because I was really like people kept asking me what I had in mind for the video, and I was just sitting out. Yeah, shout out to the director Doomy. Doomy helped me really create that vision, and I sat down trying to figure out like what am I gonna do. I don't want it to be real cliche where I'm like walking down the street with a girl, or I'm just got her in the video, something stupid that like I would like just really regular thinking, and I'm like, you know what, I need to go to somebody that has some real outside the box thinking to help me orchestrate this whole thing. So I kind of had the initial idea of like, you know what, let it be like a therapy session, and I could kind of talk out my problems. And then I seen it. It's a video about a weekend where he's like in like an all black background or whatever, and it kind of sparked the idea. Okay, we're gonna do all black background, like we're inside my mind, and then we're gonna do whatever. And Doomy came to me and he's like, I got some more idea. Let's use a fake heart and let's do this. And I was just like, yeah, let's do that. Why not? So we ended up just everything kind of just came out good. Shout out to everybody that was on set that just came to support, and I'm happy it came out how it did.
No, it really did. And you know what I wanted to ask you when I was watching the video? So I saw the girl who was in the chair doing her makeup.
Yeah.
And then there was the other girl who was standing who actually took your heart.
Right.
So I want to talk about that. And of course, you had like the therapist that was there too.
So, yeah, shout out to Sydney, Tony Ann, and Lisa. Shout out to them for being a part of that. So here's the thing. The girl at the vanity was supposed to have a bigger part, but unfortunately during that time, we were also working with the fact that we were trying to work with daylight because the room had a specific amount of, how it's set up is that you get a certain amount of light to come through for natural lighting. But what happened was in the process of like transferring footage from the memory card from the camera. I think some of it got corrupted or something like that. So we lost so much footage. So we had to actually shoot on the second day, and we had to just make it all work. So it was supposed to be more of that, and the last girl was more supposed to be the lustful relationship. The middle one was supposed to be like just a toxic emotional tie that I had to her, and it was just showing how lust is what kind of had me hypnotized and what made me heartless because I indulged in a lustful situation. So, but it's also for open to interpretation. But that was initially the idea. We just had to work with the footage we had. So yeah, I figured some people were going to be like, "How did what was?" But hey, do what you can do.
No, it was dope. I definitely felt the toxic portion. So, the lady who was at the Vanity, right, when I was watching this video, I was like, wow, she's not listening to him at all. Now I see why he had to go to the therapist. Like, she's just ignoring him.
That was like I said. Shout out to Doomy because all those ideas weren't really necessarily mine. Going through that whole video, we were kind of like going back and forth on set. Like, okay, it could mean this. We could do this. And we were just like, just trying to bounce ideas off each other as quick as possible, and it just came out like that. So
yeah, no, I think that was dope. Do you have a dream music video concept by any chance, like or even just a place? Because I know some people are really into the idea of traveling somewhere else outside of the USA.
I've traveled outside the US. Like, I want to shoot a video in London because I really do like London. I spent a month there in September. I really do like London, but for me, I always wanted something like fire. Like, I always wanted to set something on fire, something that looks post-apocalyptic, kind of like the Run This Town. What is it? Is it?
Oh,
what is it called? With Kanye, Jay, and Rihanna.
Yeah.
Something kind of like that with a political message. I always thought would be cool because that's eventually, like going down the line of, when I want people to look back at my catalog, I want them to still see there's a message, and I want to have a point where I can offer something like that, to the culture. So maybe something like that, like I said, post-apocalyptic, especially during a time like this. I think that would be cool, reflecting back on this whole moment. So yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely think it'll open a lot of people's eyes, because I definitely think people are viewing life a lot differently now than they ever have.
Agreed.
Yeah. Did it affect you in any way, or did you always think the same way regardless before this happened?
Like I said, like I'm somebody that kind of like, I wouldn't want to say and call myself an intellect, because I feel like I'm not necessarily an intellect, but I pay attention to things, and I'm very open-minded to ideas and different ideologies. So this whole thing happening isn't like, oh my God, how did this happen? I'm kind of like, well, I've heard about this, something like this coming into fruition at some point in time. It is just strange seeing things and not knowing what's going to happen next. But, I try not to really speak on it too much. I try not to watch too much of the news. I take information as it comes, because it was difficult for me, like in the beginning. I won't lie. Like, it was hard to even sleep. I live next to a precinct, and the hospital's not too far. So I'm hearing sirens at night, trying to get sleep. And I'm like, then I'm seeing these stories, fake articles, and it's just like, what is going on? So what helped me is, like, I would try to write, and it was hard, and it was just like, I can't write. And what helped me was eventually just getting past that writer's block and kind of putting that on paper of what I was going through and the feelings I was feeling. So I mean, I guess it affected me, but I knew it was going to breed some type of creativity, just as long as I could tap into it,
Right. And ironically, almost every person I've interviewed, I've heard that same thing, that common trend, that there's actually writer's block for a lot of people.
Yeah, writer's block is natural. And the more you get to accept, I said this before in another interview, the faster you get to accept that it's normal, the better the better chance you'll have of getting over it. Like, when you think it's not normal, you're like, why am I having this problem? Why I can't think of nothing? But it's like, sometimes you're just overexhausting yourself. Like, sometimes you need to sit down and say, all right, I've been trying this idea for hours. I need to stop, because wherever my mind keeps taking me, there's no ideas there. And then you might take like a week or a month or a year, and you go back at it with new experiences in your head, and then you start going to these different pockets of creativity, and now you could create an idea. You could complete an idea. So writer's block is normal, but like I said, when you get to realize that it's a normal thing, it becomes just like a part of the process. Like, oh, I got writer's block. I have my own ways of dealing with it, and that's pretty much it.
No, that's great. I mean, I'm definitely excited to see the type of music that you're going to release post this experience.
Right.
Because, yeah, there's a lot going on. Like, so much, like you even mentioned during the interview so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
One of my favorite songs by you is Decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was just listening to that song and I was like, a lot of people want to give up, but they don't talk about it. Everybody pretends on social media like everything's okay and that there's no problems at all. So why was it important for you to be honest and say exactly how you felt during this song?
I think people were just at the time of making it. I'm like, you know what? People can relate to just feeling like they want to give up. It's a part in the song where I put a skit in it where I'm like, I feel like I should just go start passing out CDs, and then it's a part of in the skit where I'm passing out CDs and people ignoring me, and it's just to illustrate the idea that you're gonna have moments where you want to give up and you're gonna get to that breaking point, but in most success stories you hear that's when you know things take a turn is when you get past that little bump in the road. So I just wanted people to understand it's normal and that there's ways to deal with it, and sometimes self-reflection is the best because you start to say, wow, I done been through all that and I made it through and I'm up to this point and I'm going, man, this ain't nothing. This is just another roadblock. It is what it is. And I'm one of those people that never really thought, I'm going to fail at anything. I always said, I'm going to fail, and I try to look at things positive, saying, I'm going through this, but this is going to make a great verse in the future or whatever. This is just going to make a great story. Because last year I went through a lot of nonsense, and that's kind of what I was talking about. I went through a lot of obstacles that had me like just in a dark place. But I'm like, you know what? If I stay positive, I know I'll see an upward trend eventually. And I did. And I always bring it back to me and explain it. I'm like, how bad things were going. And just me just kind of just letting go and just saying, you know what? I'm just going to let life take its course. And I let it steer me into great opportunities. So, yeah, that song I just feel like is important for people to know. Obstacles come, but you can always overcome them.
That's dope. And is that the reason why you made it your last song? Because you wanted that message to resonate with people?
Yeah, and I wanted it to resonate with people, and I was having conversations a lot with some of my people in my team, and it was just, a lot of ideas they were talking to me, and I felt like almost like they were talking through me, as I was on these verses. So it's almost like it's a double idea where it's like I'm talking to myself, but it's also people that are talking through my consciousness, and I just thought it was important to end it out like that, where despite everything else you're hearing, because I touch on a lot of different topics. It just kind of slows down, it calms down, because you're hearing a lot of, like a song like Stars is like, it's kind of like fast paced, and then you hear a song like Nowhere, it's a lot of rapping, and then you hear, Pray For Me, where it's like, it's melodic, but a lot of these things, it's like different tones, and then I just want to bring people to even space at the end, where it's like, okay, now let it all tie in, and then if you're somebody that listens to it on repeat, then it goes back to the first song, and it kind of is like also slow, but it's a build up. So it's all about design, how I do that.
That's dope. And I know you did talk about a little bit about the message that you want to leave on people, but in general, is there one specific thing you hope people feel every time they hear your voice?
I hope they're inspired to create new ideas, because I had a friend of mine who hit me up and said, yeah, I was inspired to do more, because I think the problem with music is just it's such a hustle for people now that they're just like they're using microwave tactics, and you can put substance in music and still make it fun to listen to. That's always been my thing. Is like you can be melodic, but you can still have substance. You can still be saying something. You can still tell your story. And I hope that if I can get to that point where I'm able to really do that to the best of my abilities, I hope it's going to be some other artist that says, yo, I see what he was doing. Maybe I could tap into that same idea and expound upon it. So it's really I just wanted to inspire people to set a trend of just doing something different or going in a different direction with the way that music is going.
Okay, yeah, no, that's dope. I definitely think your music is different because you'll talk about topics that a lot of artists don't, but then when you listen to it, you're just like, wow, this is really good. Like you didn't take the shortcut route or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, even creating a project, I'm like, I could do, because there was a lot of songs that didn't make it that were even a little more like, I guess you could say, more in depth as far as like social issues, but I was just careful about how I put things together and And there were also songs that was just like dumb shit where I'm just bullshitting where I'm like, you know what, I could go this route or I could find the balance. And that was my whole thing, was just finding the balance and then making sure everything made sense. So I'm glad it came out how it did.
Yeah, definitely. If there was one artist you can work with, like your one goal artist throughout your entire career, who is that person and why? I feel like I know, but I have to ask just in case I'm wrong.
You know, I'm not really sure anymore because, like, if I work with an artist, I don't really care to just collab. I want to create and expound on the idea. I said Tory Lanez recently. I said somebody like a Tory Lanez or a Neo because Neo could help me as far as like songwriting, and somebody like Tory could help me with just as far as like he seems like he's got many different formulas to just creating good records that are going to be, you know, they're good singles. So I would really want to shadow some of these people and just learn, like, you know. But I guess musically, if I was to pick somebody,
This is like way after you like you super on.
it's so tough. I guess part of me just wants to work with somebody who's a dope writer and a dope producer. I just can't think of one at the moment. Like, I would definitely work with a Drake, but I don't know what that would look like. I don't know. Oh, I would probably work with Kendrick. I would work with Kendrick. I want to see how his thoughts, because those are people that I hold to a high regard. Like, Kendrick's album made me realize, oh wow, you can do this with an album. You could create a story and have everything tie in like puzzle pieces. So like that's one of the albums I always hold, like Good Kid, Mad City, I hold in such a high regard. So maybe Kendrick, you know, but who knows?
Yeah, that would be dope. Yeah, his energy is insane too. Like when I
Yeah,
listen to Kendrick, I'm like, wow, like definitely in his own lane as well musically. So I could see that happening.
yeah, definitely,
Um,
definitely.
do you have a dream venue you would like to perform in, and if so, why?
I want to perform. Maybe not a dream venue, but I just always wanted to like I'm big on overseas. Like I just think the energy overseas, they don't get to see us often. You know, like they don't see us at all. Like over here, like I might see whoever, I might see Kanye West walking down the block in Soho. Like this is here, especially in New York or even just in the States in general. You're a lot closer to this. You're a lot closer to the culture. But over there, they're so far removed. They hold you in such a, they put you on such a pedestal. Like the energy, it seems like in these arenas overseas is so different. So I would definitely want to just experience that. That's like my first goal. Some artists, they go 6, 7 years in this thing and they never get to go overseas. They never get to experience, you know, performing at these big venues. But me, I'm like, that's like my first step is going over there, especially with the trend of music and with this whole pandemic. Um, we might not see any performance, any big venues being utilized here, but I'm overseas. They didn't get hit as hard in certain places, so you'll see a lot of artists over there still, you know, profiting off of doing shows. So if you know some people over there and you're able to get out the country, um, that's definitely a good move for any artist. So I would definitely be like my dream is to just perform some overseas venues.
That's awesome. I bet a lot of people didn't even think about it from that point of view.
Yeah,
And you definitely did put in one of your songs like waking up in France and how life changed and
yeah, yeah, yeah. Those are like I have a thing with it's like I said, when I spent time in London, it just made me see things from a different perspective. Like wow, like the energy is different, the vibe is different. It's just you know, I was like, damn, I wanna experience. And people, everybody, like I met people from France, I met people from all over the place in London, and it's just like, man, I wanna like I got a lot more exploring to do over here. Like you know, I have friends overseas that make music, and they're always telling me stories about just like, yo, you don't understand how the vibes are over here. It's crazy. Fashion week over there is crazy. It's like you know, so yeah, that's something I've kind of I guess been fascinated with.
no, that's great. And I definitely think as people travel the world, their perspective on life completely changes, their music, their style, everything. Yeah, so like for you being here in, New York and in general, do you feel like here has influenced you musically and where you went at all? Or you think if you were in France or somewhere else you were born, you always would have been on this same path?
No, I think New York was probably just the best place for me because I went through a phase where I was in love with Southern hip hop maybe like twice. Like I've been through my phases of just exploring all different types of music. I went through my West Coast phase. I went through all these phases being in New York because you're exposed to so many different sounds. As opposed to like if I was in like a California, I don't think or any other place. I just think New York is a little more receptive to other artists because it's such a melting pot, you know. And I don't think I would have had that same mentality of just accepting different types of music being somewhere else. So, you know, New York, I'm cool with being in New York. I definitely want to, you know, I don't want to stay in New York. Like New York, I think I've experienced enough of it to, you know, be able to go and, you know, set up somewhere else and just, you know, make this a temporary stay for me sometimes. But I definitely credit just growing up in New York and being in New York to just having such, you know, to actually being able to indulge in so much different type of music.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any specific 2020 goals? Because I know 2020 is a little shaky, so I'm not sure if everybody is on that. But it's cool to ask.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, everything is kind of like blurry, but you know, it's cool because, especially like this project, I don't want to be on it for too long. It's 7 tracks, so I don't really. I think you know, I know me when I listen to one of my favorite artists. You give me 7 songs, I'm gonna want more pretty soon. So, um, I hope that this, you know, can sit with people for a little second. Probably kind of take the Roddy Ricch approach, and I don't want to just you know, dilute shit too much. Where I'm like, here's more, more, more. You know, I like quality over quantity as opposed to everybody else's approach. So, yeah, I think my goal is probably to just keep working on music. I got some stuff that I know people are gonna like. I'm gonna definitely switch my direction. Is if you like, a lot of my older music was more geared toward the female audience, and like, you know, just it's still vulnerable music that people got to enjoy. And I definitely want to dip back into that a little bit, and just like, you know, kind of touch other sides of my fan base. So that's just a big goal for me, is just constantly recording and, you know, keep pushing the music. Of course, more videos, more content. That's as much as I can ask for.
Okay, definitely, definitely. Um,
Yeah.
do you have a favorite song so far that you released? Like one that means the most to you?
Um. Yeah. For me, one of my favorite songs, people don't know it. One of my favorite songs is a song called "Reasons," just because of the story of around how it got recorded. Um. I don't want to get to that story, but I think just, you know, one day I'll tell a story and people are gonna like laugh about it. But it's one of
Okay.
my favorite songs because it's the first time I got to be comfortable with my raw vocals. Um, like really raw. Like I didn't and I was sick. I was super sick while I was doing it. So I'm like,
Oh wow.
oh man, it's gonna sound so bad. And I'm recording. I'm listening back in the headphones. I'm like, oh, this is horrible. And then like I wasn't confident in myself, and I had to kind of step out on the limb because this is not at my usual studio where, you know, I'm more comfortable. And everything came out fine, and it was just like it's a different sound for me, like that I hear when I like sonically. So that's one of my favorite songs. But also it's a song I wrote called Lost Souls, where that was for a long time my favorite because it's 3 different stories of like pain depicted in 3 different scenarios, 3 different situations, and it inspired me to want to write an actual screenplay. So
Oh
that's also
wow.
one of my favorite songs. Yeah,
Wow, that's so cool. I love that. Okay.
yeah,
So you're writing the screenplay now, or
yeah. I kind of wrote like a couple rough drafts. It's like I know it's not gonna be something I probably do anytime soon, but I wrote a couple rough drafts, and it's like, all right, I got the basis of the story, but when it comes to writing screenplays or anything like that, um, there's certain elements that you have to put in it to make it interesting. Like you can't just tell a story and be like, well, it's the beginning and the end. You know, there's a conflict. Like it has to be other things that kind of like make it a really interesting piece. So that's when I'll probably sit down with like a co-writer and say, how do we turn this into, how do we, take this part and like, turn it into something more notable or whatever. So I pretty much have the basic idea written down in the basic draft, and it'll be something I explore going down the line because film is like it's like my second interest.
oh, that's so cool. Would you ever do acting, or you want to be on the other side and stay on the other side?
I will for sure do acting. I think that's something I'm probably gonna get in tune with. That was one of my goals for this year. Hopefully, it can still be a thing. But I've been that's why Heartless. We made sure that it was a thing where I kind of showed some acting skills, but people were kind of like, a lot of people compliment me. Like, oh, you actually pretty decent acting skills in it. I'm like, well, I'm a character in real life, so yeah, that's something I definitely want to do. And just being in front of the camera helps you get comfortable being on stage more. And so yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it was scary. It was very scary. I was like, that's intense. Like the shaking, your hat fell off, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, we did. I laughed a bunch of times doing that, but people were just like, "Oh, you're pretty like you're like." It didn't take me long to kind of get into character with doing that. They were like, "Oh, okay, cool. I see." So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so hopefully we'll see you soon, like doing some other
Yeah, on the
stuff
big
too.
screen. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, that's great. And where can people find your music and stay in tune with everything that you're doing?
You could definitely. I'm Banxsy Aliym on Twitter. On of course Instagram is Banxsy BANXSY.ALIYM, but you can see it at the bottom. So I'm everywhere. I'm all platforms. I got some stuff on SoundCloud for people that don't really like to do streaming. And and of course YouTube. You can just if you search my name, it'll be some stuff there too. So more music on the way. Definitely just keep watching the video, keep streaming the project. Yeah.
Okay, dope. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time. I'm glad we were able to do this Instagram live because I heard the project and I was like, wow, this is really, really good, So it's nice to get into the mind. I like getting into the mind of people who create such
Yeah.
great music.
I appreciate you for having me too. It's dope to always speak about music on any platform for anybody that's up and coming, that's just looking to give exposure to artists like myself. So I definitely appreciate you for that.
Yes, of course. Anytime. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Shout out to all y'all for tuning in too. I appreciate y'all for coming to see the live and see the interview, and I hope y'all learned some things in conversation. So yeah, and be blessed during this quarantine.
Yeah, shout out to everybody that tunes into the live. Like seriously, I appreciate everybody. I'm like the type of person though, every time I do the interviews, I'm never looking at comments. I'm always like that. But yes, I appreciate everybody.
Yeah, I was getting through the comments a little bit. I was reading through it and just seeing if anybody had anything they wanted me to touch on. But I think we kind of touched on everything, so that's good.
Yeah, that's
So,
what.
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, of course, anytime. Thank you, everybody.
Nothing on me you can take from me. Don't advise it ain't the safest thing.